The Oil-to-401K. What's quietly happening to your money and what to do about it by Felix Pin, ex-investment banker. Right now, something dangerous is happening to your money, and it has nothing to do with the stock market. It started with a war, but the real damage is hiding somewhere most people never think to look. Underneath the headlines, underneath the oil prices, underneath the politics. It's hiding inside a $29 trillion mountain of government debt, and that debt is about to become dramatically more expensive. If you have a 401k, a retirement account, a portfolio, or any savings at all, your money is sitting right on top of that mountain. That's what this is about. The three link chain. Today I'm going to walk you through a three-step chain reaction. It starts with the Iran war. It moves through the global debt system and it ends inside your retirement account. Most people only understand step 1. The smart money is already acting on step 3. I'll explain each step in plain English. And at the end I'll give you a simple three-part framework. Three things you can do right now to protect yourself. Link 1. The oil shock. On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched a military operation against Iran, Operation Epic Fury. They don't call it a war because that would require congressional approval. But the consequences are very real. Iran struck back. Missiles hit Israeli cities. Attacks landed on US bases in the Gulf. But the most powerful move wasn't a missile, it was Iran blocking the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of water between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula through which roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass every single day. When that strait closed, oil prices shot toward $126 a barrel. Gas prices climbed 38% since the conflict began. That's the part you've probably heard about. But here's what the news isn't telling you. Oil doesn't just power your car, it powers the trucks that deliver your food. It's used to make fertilizer, the kind sprinkled on a third of the world's crops, much of it shipped through that same strait. It generates electricity in large parts of the world. It's used in the chemicals that manufacture memory chips, electronics, and countless everyday products. When oil goes up, everything goes up, not one price. All prices. The Federal Reserve had projected inflation at around 2.4% this year. That forecast was made before the worst of the oil spike hit. The real number will be considerably higher. We're already seeing it in the data. 401k contribution rates are falling as people redirect that money toward gas, groceries, and utility bills. 20% of American workers took a loan from their own retirement account last year. That is the highest number ever recorded. Link to the debt spiral. Here's where it gets serious, and where most people stop connecting the dots. The Federal Reserve was supposed to cut interest rates this year. Lower rates mean cheaper mortgages, cheaper business loans, more money flowing through the economy. That was the plan. But you cannot cut interest rates when inflation is rising. Lower rates add fuel to an already burning fire. So the Fed is trapped. If they cut rates, inflation gets worse. If they raise rates or hold them high, borrowing becomes more expensive for everyone, including the government itself. Mortgages rise, businesses stop hiring, the economy slows, we slide toward recession. There is no clean exit. It's inflation or recession. Pick your poison. Now layer this on top of a number that connects everything $29 trillion. That is how much governments around the world need to borrow in 2026 alone, double what they borrowed just 10 years ago. A significant portion of existing government debt was borrowed during COVID, when interest rates were near zero, cheap money, easy terms. But debt doesn't last forever. It matures, it comes due. And when it does, governments must borrow new money to pay back the old at today's much higher rates. Imagine you had a loan at 1%. Now it's expired, and the new loan costs 5%. Your monthly payment just quintupled. Your income hasn't changed. That is the situation facing governments in the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, Australia, and across Europe, all at once. Why should you care? Because you likely own bonds. If you're in a target date retirement fund, which many people are, 30 to 40% of your money is sitting in bonds. And here is the one rule you must write down: when interest rates go up, bond prices go down. This is not a matter of opinion, it is a mathematical fact. They move in opposite directions always. So, as this crisis pushes inflation higher and keeps rates elevated, that portion of your retirement account loses value. And it doesn't stop there. When governments borrow more, they crowd out the private sector. There's less capital available for businesses. Growth slows. Corporate profits fall. Stock prices follow. Your portfolio is getting squeezed from both sides. bonds falling on one end, stocks weakening on the other. Link 3. The flawed fix. This is the part that should concern you most. Here is what governments around the world are currently doing to address rising inflation and energy costs. They are borrowing money at high interest rates to pay subsidies that lower your energy bill. The subsidies go to energy companies. The energy companies are owned overwhelmingly by their shareholders. And according to Federal Reserve data, the wealthiest 10% of Americans own 93% of all stock. So the government borrows money in your name, hands it to oil and energy companies as indirect subsidy payments, and the profits flow to the people who own the shares. Meanwhile, the debt grows. That debt eventually gets paid through higher taxes, government spending cuts, or, most likely, higher inflation. Who pays for higher inflation? You do. Your purchasing power shrinks, your salary buys less, the working person gets poorer, the asset owner gets richer. This is not a conspiracy theory, it is simply how the system works. And here is the truly dangerous part. To fight the inflation caused by the subsidies and the debt, the government needs to borrow more to stimulate a slowing economy. More borrowing pushes rates higher. Higher rates make the next round of borrowing more expensive, which creates more inflation, which requires more subsidies, which requires more borrowing. It is a loop, a doom loop, and we have seen this before. After COVID, the same playbook was used. Government debt exploded. Inflation hit levels not seen in 40 years. It took years to bring it back down. We almost got there, and now it begins again. The survival framework. Understanding the chain reaction gives you something most people don't have: a mental map. Here is how to use it. Step 1. Follow the money institutional investors are moving. Watch where the capital is actually going, not what the headlines say. By the time a story is in the news, the smart money has already moved. Watch for divergence between paper prices and physical prices in commodities. Watch institutional flows in metals, energy, and quality equities. The signals are there if you know where to look. Step 2. Find your pressure points. Before you change anything, understand what you actually own. Tonight, log into your retirement account. Look at the breakdown. What percentage is in bonds? What percentage is in stocks? Are you in a target date fund with heavy bond exposure? Do you have a variable rate mortgage? What percentage of your monthly spending goes to gas and food, the categories most exposed to this inflation? And ask yourself honestly, is this allocation still right for the environment we are entering? Putting it all together. The Strait of Hormuz carries 1 in 5 seaborne oil barrels. Iran closed it. Oil spiked. Gas is up 38% and still climbing. That oil shock is pushing inflation higher at exactly the moment the Federal Reserve needed to ease off. The Fed is trapped. Government borrowing costs are surging as $29 trillion in debt needs to be refinanced at much higher rates. Your portfolio, holding both bonds and stocks, is getting squeezed from both sides, and governments are responding the only way they know how, by borrowing more to subsidize the crisis. But that borrowing makes the debt bigger, pushes rates higher, and creates a loop that feeds on itself. The only consistent beneficiaries are the shareholders, the people who own the assets. So the choice in front of you is simple. You can be a passive bystander to this system, or you can become an asset owner, someone who understands what is happening and positions accordingly. You already understand the chain reaction. Now use it.